Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped, back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we are a week out from the 9th anniversary, and you know what that means some tier list time. So, if you're a newer player or a mid-game player coming back to the game, starting the game, doing all that fun stuff, and looking for what free-to-play characters to farm, we are starting a tier list for not only free-to-play characters, but also pay-to-play characters alike. So in today's video, we're focusing on arenas. Now, if you guys don't know what arenas are, they basically pop up sporadically now. They were like once a month, but you can find them in the Recollective Archive. These characters are very, very powerful. They're some of the best free-to-play characters in the game, and they are readily available for 100 Recollective Archive points. There's plenty of videos out there to sort of take down each particular piece of content. However, in today's video, we're going to rank which ones are the most valuable and which ones you should prioritize first. If you enjoy the video, make sure to go down there and belt the like button if you're new to the channel, or you haven't done so already, hit that big red subscribe button, and down in the comment section, let me know what tier list you guys want to see next. But with that said, let's dive in and let's take a look at some of the arena characters in OPTC. Alright, so over here on the tier list maker, link in the description if you guys want to make your own tier list, and we have all of the arena characters that are readily available in the Recollective Archive, all the way up to Sasaki. Now, there is this character right here. This is a crocodile. He's just off to the side here because the way I've done the overlay. But just to let you guys know, the crocodile is here. So, starting in order of the very first arena, we have Kamazo. Now, Kamazo is a driven slasher, and the big upside to this particular unit is that he can pop his special off very, very early, and he does damage. It's really the only reason you're going to use him now. He came out alongside Hawkins and Kid. He was designed to be used with Kid, and he has a very, very good support that gives driven characters 1.3 times color affinity on the final stage as long as you attach it to Kid. The upside to this character, though, and the big reason that you're going to use him is in Treasure Map. Because, like I said, he has that limit break ability where he gives himself cooldown at the start of the quest, and then you can just do damage. It's great for wave clearing for mid-game players that are in the Grand Line or the New World. This is where you're going to use him most. He is a orb booster as well, though, a 2.25, I'm pretty sure, if you have like a type orb or something like that. But like I said, 99% of the time you will be using him for wave clearing, and for that reason, he's pretty solid. There are other characters that can wave clear as well, but this is a free-to-play option, very easy to farm, very easy to level up, so definitely going to go in the solid tier. Just for his support as well, makes him very, very solid. Next, we've got Franosuke. Franosuke is definitely an underrated free-to-play unit. He has the ability to set defense slow, give you a conditional boost with the clock and the perfect buff, but then also removes also has some utility with despair removal and attack down removal. He has a fantastic support as well that goes on some of the Straw Hats. I know he goes on Robin. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but when you use their special, he does 2 turns of attack down. Fantastic character, and honestly, just for the support, I would definitely get a few copies of him, but maxing him out is definitely going to help you guys out as well. He's a Psi unit, very, very powerful with the conditional buffs, and having that utility for attack down removal and despair. I think it's attack down. I might be wrong there, actually, but it's definitely despair, because I did recently try and use this unit for a free-to-play team, so I definitely know that he has despair removal, but he also has, yeah, he has attack down. It's 4 turns. As I mentioned, he's a conditional booster 2 times, but he does remove all beneficial effects on the crew as well. So you can use this in your favor for wiping away like a 1.1 attack and orb boost, and that is actually a pretty niche ability as well. He goes on Zora, Usopp, and Robin to give you those 2 turns of attack down as long as the character uses a special. He's a free spirit, he's a striker, 2 of the best classes in the game, and one of the best colors being Psi. Next, we've got X-Drake. X-Drake, I think from my last tier list, is definitely going to move up. I think I had him like low, like on Dookie, but he's definitely a solid character. And the reason he's a solid character is because he has a very niche ability that not a lot of other characters can do in the game. He has the ability to remove damage nullification for 2 turns, which nowadays is a little bit more prevalent, but still not like a buff that you're going to need all the time. But for a free-to-play unit to do this is very, very valuable. Stuff like K-Dad is probably the biggest example of getting around damage null. They do it for 5 turns. So getting a free-to-play unit to do it for 2 is actually pretty nice. So X-Drake's pretty powerful. He can also do some other stuff as well, like remove Threshold for 4 turns. He can be a Chain Locker if your captain, if 3 or more Dex, Quick, or In characters are on the crew. And he can also be a utility unit, removing Bind and boosting the chain multiplier if you have 3 or more Psi units. So, pretty interesting character, pretty unique character. Nothing crazy, but definitely solid, purely to do with his damage null ability. His support can go on strength powerhouse units and just gives you a 1.2 color affinity boost on the final stage. So that's also pretty valuable. And again, just like Kamizo for that reason, he's a pretty solid character. Next, we've got Bonekichi. Bonekichi, look, he's alright. Like, he doesn't get as much love as he probably should. On paper, he seems like a really good character, but honestly, I don't use this character, like, at all. The big upside to him is he can do end-of-turn damage for 3 turns, which can definitely be valuable at getting around stuff like resilience, doing stuff like wave clearing very easily, but other than that, you don't really see too much play for this guy, because the rest of his special is very, very niche. You need either delays all enemies for 2 turns and sets the defense to 0 for 1 turn. But if there's only 1 enemy, he doubles the damage to defense down. And if there are 2 more enemies, he doubles the damage to delay. So he can be a self-proccing conditional, but it's very dependent on how many enemies you come up against. And just because of that, he kind of gets lost in transition. And lots of people just sort of forget about this unit, or there are just better options. There's nothing really that stands out for this character. His other effect is he reduces damage over 3,000. But in today's meta, like, you're very, very rarely stalling or needing to use this ability. And there's just other characters that can just do this better. So, unfortunately for Bonekichi, he just sort of falls off there. But he does have a very interesting support that goes on Zoro, Toko, or Hiyori, where he can boost damage dealt to enemies affected by defense down for 1.3 times. So that's a little bit interesting, and it did come in handy for Grand Voyage. So if you just want to farm this character up, get his support maxed for that reason, I definitely wouldn't hold that against you. Next, we've got Kawamatsu. Now, Kawamatsu, in my opinion, he's still a farm ASAP unit. This character is still so good. He's got great utility at removing paralysis and attack down for 3 turns, but then also gives you a buff for free spirit and slashes and the clock buff. So what that means is he does damage, 3 turns of paralysis and attack down removal, great utility. He can also rotate block orbs, bomb orbs, and empty orbs into character's own type. He locks slots, and then free spirit and slashes get a 1.75 times attack boost. After 2 turns, you get that clock buff for 2 turns. He then becomes a 2 times orb boost, which is very, very strong. 2-turn buff, great utility, great orb manipulation for a free-to-play unit that goes on not only a slasher team, but a free spirit team. And as you guys know, free spirit is so powerful that, like, having this unit just bolsters that class drastically. Plus, he has a support that goes on Kazuki Oden, Raizo, and Okiku that can remove 2 turns of paralysis whenever they use a special. Now, if you're a new player and you log in for 15 days, you actually get Super Sugafest Kazuki Oden for absolutely free. So this character works exceptionally well as not only a support on Oden, but as a sub on an Oden team as well. So definitely farm him up. If you're going to pick any character out of this list, I think that Kawamatsu is one character that you definitely want to be looking at. Next, we've got Sanjuan Wolf. Sanjuan Wolf is, unfortunately, one of the weaker arena characters, and he's so unique as a unit that you just kind of want him to be more. But if you guys have something like Legend Moria, there's a good chance that you are never going to use this character. He reduces decreased chain multiplier and lock chain multiplier by 5 turns, which definitely can be useful, especially the lock chain multiplier, as chain boundary and chain has become so much more efficient, and with the rush ability coming into play, this is going to see a lot more play. But then he also heals 30% of the crew's maximum HP. He boosts type effects for Driven and Powerhouse by 1.75. And if your captain is Driven Powerhouse, he boosts the character's slot effects by 1 turn after 2 turns. So he works great on Blackbeard teams because he can trigger like stuff like Blackbeard Super Tandem and stuff like that. But other than that, like I said, if you can bring Moria, the legend int Driven Powerhouse Moria, you're just going to bring him every single time. Even his support is pretty how you're going. It goes on Teach or Shiryu to remove 2 turns of Chain Lock. Can be useful, but like I said, I've rarely ever, if not ever, used Sanjuan Wolf, and unfortunately for that reason, I do have to slap him down here in the Dookie tier. Next, we've got Young Shinobu. Young Shinobu is actually a very, very cool character, but I think has dropped off just a little bit. She has the ability to remove all beneficial effects, just like Frankie does. She removes 3 turns of Bind and Paralysis and deals 200 times her attack to all enemies for 3 turns at the end of the turn. She also gives the crew a 1.75 times attack boost. If you are above 41% HP, she cuts your own HP by 40%, which is great to get around stuff like stun. And she can reduce her own special charge by 7 turns. So very, very cool ability. And honestly, like, she's probably on the cusp of farm ASAP and fantastic. Just a, like, side note, I should have probably mentioned this at the start. These characters, really, you just want to farm when you need them, because there's so many things to do as a new player in the game that you kind of want to optimize your account and sort of build up your gem count to be ready for stuff like big banners, and try and get some of those more illustrious characters. But, like I was saying, Shinobu is kind of on the cusp of fantastic and farm ASAP. She doesn't really see, like, too much use nowadays, but she definitely has in the past. Kind of like Kawamatsu, to be honest. So I think she'd probably be at the back end of this farm ASAP. And I would probably put her similar to what Kawamatsu can actually do. So, if you guys don't think she's up here, I would understand if you're an endgame player. But for me, I think she's probably somewhere between the two here. She has some really unique abilities. End of turn damage is quite valuable. But like I said, there are some other characters that can kind of do that nowadays. Next, we've got Mihawk. Mihawk is another very unique character. He has the ability to remove defense up for 5 turns and resilience for 5 turns, and then does a chain lock for 3 times. And then if you've done over like 5 million damage throughout the quest, he gives himself 9 turns of special charge. So that way you can just sort of pop off his special quite fast. If another in character uses a special, he gives himself cooldowns. So you can get this guy special every single turn. However, chain lock has been completely overpowered by chain boundary. So if you're ever going to be bringing that buff, you kind of want to look at bringing a different character for that. So he's definitely not bad. He has no utility, he does a HP cut. So to be honest, like, I used to really like Mihawk. I thought he was very, very good, but nowadays he just kind of like the defense up removal, the resilience removal is like his best feature. But I could not tell you the last time I actually used this particular Mihawk. Next we have Ashura Doji. Ashura Doji is a very, very powerful character. The downside to this unit is that his special is on a 24-turn cooldown. Came out alongside King and Queen, and they are very good at giving lots of cooldowns, so it's understandable for him to be on such a high cooldown. And when you hear what he does, you'll understand why you have to wait 24 turns for it. He reduces defense to 0 for 1 turn, reduces special mine by 6 turns, threshold by 6 turns, does 120 times his attacking damage to all enemies, doubles the effectiveness of attacks to defense down for 1 turn, and then boosts quick / a powerhouse base attack by 500. It's a lot for one character. Now, 24 turn cooldown, that's a lot of stalling, and it's a lot of annoyance to actually get this to pop off, but he does have a level 1 at 12 turns, which is 99% of the time that you're going to see. He basically does all the same stuff, but just to a lower degree. He doesn't set the defense to 0 anymore, but he still does the special mine and the threshold by 4 turns, not 6, and then deals 80 times his attacking non-type damage to all enemies, as well as affecting enemies, doubling the effect of enemies with defense down. So he's still that conditional booster, but doesn't do the actual condition. He still does the base attack by plus 300 instead, so it's not as good. He's a fantastic unit. Like, definitely not a farm ASAP, because nowadays it's very niche that you kind of need what he does. So I would sort of just get him when you actually need him. He's not a character that you're just going to like try and chuck on teams to either make things faster, like what Shinobu can do, or he's not just going on some of the most powerful teams like Free Spirit, like what Kawamatsu can do. In saying that though, he's a very powerful character, and definitely one that I would farm up when you see some special blind, or when you see some threshold, or if your account is based around sort of powerhouse and slashes. This character is going to be very, very good. Going back to that Kazuki Odin argument though, just like Kawamatsu, this unit is very, very good for that Odin team, because he's another character that can proc Odin's super type ability. His support goes on any of the 9 scabbards, and he can boost their attack by 1.5 whenever they use a special. So just an extra little damage buff for that particular character, but nothing too crazy for the actual squad. Next, we've got Caesar. Caesar is one of the best characters for speed farming treasure map. And as an end game player, or even a mid game player in Grand Line to the New World, you got to farm this guy up. This guy is an absolute demon at wave clearing. He has double special activation. He has the reduce the cooldowns at the start of the quest buff, so that way you're always starting with his special. He also has great utility, removes Despair and Blind for 2 turns, and then he's a self-proccing conditional boost depending on how many times you've used his special. He poisons enemies, as well as then giving the buff to poison. If you haven't used his special at all, he's 1.5 times attack. After 1 time, he's at 1.75, and then 2 times after 2. Very easy to get this to pop off. So very, very powerful character for stuff like treasure map. In regular play, you're pretty much never going to use this guy, if I'm completely honest. So this guy is just one of those characters that you want to farm up so you can farm treasure map very, very quickly. But if you are a newer player, he's definitely going to be on the lower sort of like spectrum here for regular play. But because he's so good in treasure map, I definitely want to give him the credit where credit is due, because I use this guy literally every single treasure map. Every single treasure map. So as soon as you hit Grand Line, farm him up, get him done, because he's going to be very, very handy to make the very grindy game modes a lot more bearable. Next, we've got Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy. This guy is actually a character that doesn't get enough love. I think this guy is fantastic. I'm not going to say he's a farm up now character, because Luffy Obviously, it has to compete with every other Luffy in the game, and there are a lot of Luffys that you're probably going to look at using over this guy, but that doesn't diminish what this character can actually do. He has a level 3 special maxing at 14 turns, where he does a 10% HP gut, sets all defense to 0 for 1 turn, removes poison completely, and changes block orbs into their own type, as well as setting the chain multiplier at 3.5. However, you can get his level 1 after 6 turns, which is incredibly easy to do, halving defense, changing block orbs, and giving a 2.75 times chain lock. Whilst chain lock has been completely power crept, as I mentioned with the Mihawk argument, this doesn't take away the fact that you can still do some really cool stuff in the early game or the mid game with this particular unit. So he's fantastic. Don't prioritize the farm, but like definitely don't discredit what this character can do. Next we've got Crocodile, and Crocodile is one of those units that is kind of like completely forgotten about. Honestly, he's going to go straight into Dookie for me because like I haven't used this guy since he's released. I think he did see some fight in Grand Voyage, sorry, at the Luffy at Lobetown, where like you have to use Buggy, because all of these characters are 40 cost, so he can be used on the Buggy team, but he really doesn't do too much to help out most teams for regular play. He's a color affinity booster for normal attacks, just for int characters, and if your captain is int, he makes strength, dex, quick, and sight orbs have matching slot effects for 1 turn. He removes sound effects, which is a very niche buff you don't really see too often, but isn't super like annoying. And he reduces crew's decreased chain multiplier growth rate by 7 turns. He poisons all enemies, and then also applies a venom. So he does like a double poison. Like, just unfortunately for Croc, I think if he was a conditional booster on top of his venom, you'd probably see a little bit more play. But nowadays, and even when he released, like he was just not a character that was good. Next, we've got Queen, and Queen is another character that's just not there. Honestly, for me, Queen's quite dookie. He does random strength damage 15 times, which can be good for barriers, but that's probably about it. Reduces burn duration by 7 turns, another debuff that you don't have to worry about too much. If HP is 50% or above, you cannot be KO'd, and changes block orbs to own type, while also boosting damage to defense down by 2.25. This guy was meant to be used alongside the point farming event Jack. So to need 2 free-to-play characters to just get a conditional boost that literally these 2 characters can do, it's just kind of like, why? Like, even Caesar can be a self-rocking conditional boost, and then Queen literally only gives you that kind of damage. The orb manipulation is great, but for the first 13-star arena, this guy is just such a missed opportunity and such a loss. He does have a support that removes 2 turns of burn for stuff like Jack. I think he goes on King and Kaido as well. But other than that, like, you're just never really going to see his support be used. Alright, next we've got Hawkins. Hawkins is a very interesting character. He has the ability to remove slot bind by 2 turns, which is like very, very rare. There's not a lot of characters that can actually just remove slot bind with their special. And slot bind is actually pretty unique, and for a character to remove with their special is very interesting. He also increases damage taken to the enemy by 1.5 for 3 turns and deals 250 times his attack to all enemies at the end of the turn, depending on the number of enemies present. So you can do up to 6 turns of this, which can be valuable for stuff like speed farming content, but if the enemy doesn't have the full immunity buff, that's where you're going to see this guy the most play. However, it's so prevalent nowadays, or in general, to have full immunity, as well as slot bind being so niche, that this guy's just solid. Like, definitely not a character you're going to need to farm up, but once the opportunity arises where he's very, very good, you guys will see that in like a video, or if you guys need to farm him, that's when you would pretty much do so. Next, we've got Katarina Devon. Katarina Devon came out alongside Blackbeard, and then this is where like arenas kind of started to sort of drop off drastically. Looking at the Recollective Archive, though, she actually not even in the Recollective Archive. What is that about, Bandai? That's crazy. It's actually crazy. We'll come back to her. We'll go to Sasaki and then we'll come back. That's got to be a mistake. Like, surely. But talking about Sasaki, I really like Sasaki. Sasaki for me is like a farm ASAP unit. He gives 1 turn of cooldown to your entire crew and removes attack down and despair by 2 turns. He deals 80 times his attack into 1 enemy, and then does color affinity buff to powerhouse and driven characters, depending on the number of times you use his special. If you've used his special 1 time, he adds an extra turn of despair and attack, and he's a 2 times color affinity. And if you've used his special 2 times, he then does 4 He does 4 turns of attack and despair removal. He has double special activation plus the idea of this unit was to use it alongside Verse Kaido, so you can get 20 turns of cooldown. But just through the double special to get 2 turns of cooldown and some utility is so handy. It works amazing for speed farming teams, for endgame players, or mid-game players moving into the endgame. Plus, for newer players, he's on a 9-turn cooldown, and you can do some really cool stuff with this particular character. I've used him like a multitude of times since his release. So I would highly recommend farming him up if you can beat his arena. His arena is actually fairly challenging though. So if you are a newer player, don't be disheartened if you can't actually beat the set arena, because like it is one of the harder pieces of content in the actual game. Going back to Katarina Devon now. Katarina Devon is interesting because she came out alongside Blackbeard. She reduces powerhouse and driven character special charge by 1 turn, reduces threshold by 6 turns, delays the enemies, and doubles the damage dealt to delayed enemies by 2 turns. Locks slot, and if the crew has an attack boost, she further increases by 0.25. Honestly, she's probably on the cusp of fantastic and solid. The downside to her is that you have to use her on driven and powerhouse teams, and she doesn't have the ability to roll back her special if you get special reverse. Neither does Sasaki, actually, but the upside to Sasaki is he has the ability to use the Who's Who support, so you can still actually get that special reverse and use it to your advantage. I like Katarina Devon, but honestly, the fact that you can't farm her, like, just kind of makes her, like, alright, to be honest. And not a character that you're going to ever see, because you just can't get her. She's probably going to pop up in that PKA shop. Otherwise, hopefully Bandai's watching this video, and they go, holy crap, Stump, we didn't know that. Thank you for letting us know. We're going to add her to that Recollective Archive right away. But that's going to wrap up the video. That's all the arena characters in the game. Ranked on a tier list for you guys to hopefully figure out what you want to farm. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to belt the like button if you're new to the channel. If you haven't done so already, hit that big red subscribe button. Most importantly, though, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Later.